Today you will hear a speech by Audrey Hepburn, Goodwill Ambassador, at the press conference at the conclusion of Wiesbaden for DNSF on December 12, 1991. Please pay close attention to the methods that she used to effectively convey her speech.
These are devastatingly hard times for our world. In spite of a worldwide recession, the people of Wiesbaden have opened up their hearts and given priority to the most vulnerable and fragile, our children. I am overwhelmed by the extraordinary effort of love you have made. This Wiesbaden initiative is unique. Never before has an entire city raised funds for a whole year for children in need. You, Mr. Mayor, have been the driving force behind this splendid action. On behalf of DNSF, I express my deepest gratitude to you, the father of this city, and to every single citizen who has worked so hard and given so generously and lovingly to alleviate the suffering of so many children. I dearly hope that your shining example will be followed by many other cities all over the world. We have, for centuries, lived in ignorance and indifference to much of the suffering around us. This is no longer possible. Thanks to you, the media, the world can no longer ignore its poor nor its political prisoners, its starving and dying, its wars, violence, and injustice. The media has become a lifeline to a world in need. Thank you for being here today and for once again showing your willingness to be a voice for those children who are unable to speak for themselves. Every year for more than a decade, the report has called the attention of people everywhere to the desperate plight of the most neglected, most vulnerable, and innocent among us, our children. In this report, you will read of children suffering from malnutrition, excruciating poverty, disease, illiteracy, and the effects of overpopulation. I have seen many of these children, and believe me, it is heartbreaking. Yet I am sustained by the knowledge that to all of this there is a solution. As Mr. Grant will shortly tell you, the 1990s could be a decade of real progress. Those children that have stricken me with despair are the ones who are the victims of war and civil conflict. And I quote from the report, "In the last decade, more than 1.5 million children have been killed in wars. More than 4 million have been physically disabled, limbs amputated, brains damaged, eyesight and hearing loss through bombing, landmines, firearms, torture. 5 million children are in refugee camps because of war. A further 12 million have lost their homes. The time has now come for a worldwide public to cry out against this war on children, against those who use the weapons and those who supply them. If wars must be fought, and at the very least children should be protected from their worst effects. We do not have the power to stop a war, but we do have the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which has now been ratified by 100 countries, and it specifically demands all feasible measures to ensure protection and care of children who are affected by armed conflict. We can and must create a safety net for children, zones of peace and protection. We ask that periods of tranquility and special relief corridors be observed for the benefit of the children, where war and violence are still taking place. Last year at the World Summit for Children, which was attended by 72 heads of state, a promise was made. that children should have first call in society's concern in good times and in bad, in war as in peace, in times of recession as in times of affluence. A man who is dedicating his life to keeping this promise is our executive director. This year of universal child immunization for 80% of children in the developing world. The miracle of this decade. Wherever there is a child in need, there is Mr. James Grant.
Audrey Hepburn's speech at the press conference at the conclusion of Wiesbaden for DNSF thanked the people of Wiesbaden for their contributions, but argued more change is feasible to aid hurt children affected by war. Her speech thanked people for their help, but proclaimed that more action is possible through her urgently sympathetic tone, also her clever word choice, thoughtful arrangement of ideas, and appeals to emotion and logic so that more action can be done about this grave issue. For example, Audrey Hepburn's touching word choice emphasizes the need to assist the children of war quickly. Her use of the words "stricken me" in paragraph 4 reflect her deep-rooted connection with the issue, as she was herself once a child of war post-World War II. This is not an issue that's just on the surface. The use of the subjective words "stricken me" instead of a word like "impact" created a sense of how big of an issue this is. Additionally, the use of connotative words like excruciating effectively express the level of poverty children are facing, as opposed to her using a word like bad. Both of these words effectively convey her purpose of motivating people to take a stand and succor these children. Moreover, Audrey Hepburn's craftful sentence arrangement or syntax clearly communicates a need for unity of the masses of people if any real progress is going to be achieved in providing aid to innocent children in zones of war. By using the parallel structured placement of the word "we," she instigates that this is not something a sole individual can undertake. With this manner, she is also pointing out the effectiveness of this method, as the city of Wiesbaden itself made their mark in helping as they worked together. Also, the usage of loose sentences in paragraph 2 portrays how critical of an issue this is, stating first the strongly charged part of the idea that the media has become a lifeline, underlining how important a role the media can have in this humanitarian issue. This significantly effective method shows that these are things that must be solved immediately. The use of these structures implement the sentiment that action is needed now, but to be successful, everyone must be involved. Furthermore, Audrey Hepburn's compelling appeals to emotion and logic further her point of helping the children even more. By addressing the need to alleviate the suffering, she evokes a state that these children are living in. These points influence the audience of the people of Wiesbaden to be proactive. Additionally, the use of facts and statistics of the impact of the wars are having shed a light of the degree that these wars have gone to. Since so many children have been affected in so many ways, action is needed. Also, the device of antagogue is used whenever she says that we do not have the power to stop a war, but we do have the Convention on the Rights of the Child. So she shows a negative side to this, while also portraying that there is a reassuring solution. There is a dark, but there is a light side to this. Audrey Hepburn's powerful diction, efficacious syntax, and appeals to emotion and logic move the audience to take action about the issue in order to create meaningful change for hurting children of war. Today, I urge you to vote for Audrey Hepburn's "These Are Devastatingly Hard Times" speech because of the methods and concepts that she successfully transmitted to her audience. Her word choice, for example, showed her personal connection to this issue of war on children. She herself was a child affected by war after World War II and received medical relief and other aid by the UNICEF organization. So she shared those same sentiments that the children suffering were experiencing. With her word choice, she also conveyed the level of harm that these wars were causing, and it was very evident to the audience about what they needed to do. Her sentence structure in particular added emphasis in unity. She conveyed that unison, that power in numbers for this issue was imminent if any positive change was going to come out. She also highlighted the importance that the media had in creating awareness about this world issue affecting children all over the place because they played a significant role. She also moved the audience to take action to help kids because she recognized this was not an individual's effort. To create positive change, there was going to be more than one person. It was going to take a great number of people in order to effectively help these children in any means possible. Also, her use of rhetorical devices throughout her speech represented the level of suffering that these children were undergoing, and in the different ways, specifically citing her statistics about the different ways that they were being harmed by war, whether physically, mentally, economically, or affecting any other social factor. She also conveyed inner feelings of thankfulness to people who were already creating a change, but also played on emotions by saying that too, creating a sense of sympathy for these children, inducing reflection of the audience as they probably thought about how privileged they were to a certain degree, that they were having better opportunities at life than these children would ever experience, and that is why change was something that they had to strive to achieve, and so they would want to provide this kind of life to these hurt children also. So really, today you should vote for Audrey Hepburn's speech because she conveyed passion in every single word she felt about helping kids of war. In 1993, she won the John Herschel Humanitarian Award, but she had passed on, so it was too late. So helping these children of war is still a significant issue of today, and it directly impacts you. These are your fellow global teens and kids, and it is time to fight against injustice. So therefore, this speech effectively conveyed all of the senses in which the audience should be moved to action, to be proactive in this directly emotional situation, and therefore not only expressed how Audrey Hepburn's sentiments about this topic reflected her wishes of helping, but how she wanted others to help and do the same as she was. Audrey Hepburn was a renowned actress during her days, but based on the evidence of this speech and her work all around the globe and different continents, she truly created an impact. She truly played her biggest role as a humanitarian. She was an empowering and powerful woman, and that is something to be admired. That is something that is transmitted to the audience by means of this speech.